Hey everyone, it's me, John. Welcome back to Itchy Mysteries. Feels like we haven't had one of these in a while. If I remember right, the last one we did was about the killing season, and I know in that episode I promised you guys I would do some type of video where I talked about that now that the show has run its last episode. So tune in to Johnny Vlogs on Monday, and I will be talking all about my thoughts about the killing season. But it did raise an interesting question for me. One of the best leads, or actually a few of the best leads, that the investigators on the killing season got was when they spoke to a serial killer. And when I was looking for documentaries to watch today to figure out what to talk to you guys about, I saw one called Interview with a Serial Killer, and it's pretty short. I did find it on Netflix. It is also available on YouTube. I recommend if you have Netflix, you watch it there just because you won't get any ads. The YouTube one has a ton of ads sprinkled all through it. But it is about Arthur Shawcross, who is a serial killer, killed 11 women as well as 2 children. He doesn't really want to talk about those 2 cases, and those were pretty much at the start of his career as a serial killer. But it does provide some interesting insight, and for anyone out there that is trying to do armchair detective work, or if you're a web sleuther or something like that, I highly recommend that you check out Interview with a Serial Killer. It's not quite the entertainment piece that a lot of these documentaries can be. There's no cool music, there's no cool visuals. It's not really put together as a piece of art. It is more so, it's more put together like a news segment, just like a 40-minute news segment. Though I do have to say that even though I think it runs 45 minutes or so, it feels a lot longer because the subject matter is a bit dark and you're spending a lot of time with this serial killer, Arthur. Know that he was sentenced to over 200 years in prison. He wound up dying in 2008 from a cardiac arrest, so he is no longer around. But there are some pretty important things that I think we can gain if you take the time to watch Interview with a Serial Killer. And one of those things is just insight into kind of how their mind works, what types of things stick out for them in terms of their memories, how they operate. He goes into explaining a few things, and I do have to give you guys a little bit of warning. There's no pictures. There's nothing really graphic in terms of what they show you. However, the descriptions that he gives can be extremely graphic, and they do interview other people, and some of the descriptions they give are also graphic. And he kind of goes down this avenue where he suggests that he was abused as a young man, and some of that stuff can also be a little graphic, but it's all pretty much in description. You're not going to see anything that's going to be horrible in front of your eyes. It's just the stories you're hearing are going to be horrible to hear. But I found a lot of value in this because of the type of stuff I do, because I'm trying to understand these things more. When you look at a case like the Gilgo Beach murders, a case that is currently unsolved, if you're trying to understand a bit of the mindset of those types of people, I think that this is a very good companion piece. So basically, if you have hit the end of the killing season and you're trying to understand those cases a bit better, which they covered way more than the Gilgo Beach murders, but I'll talk more about that on Monday. I think this is a very good follow-up segment because you're going to spend time with a serial killer, an interviewer that is asking some pretty tough questions. And I know if you saw Johnny Vlogs earlier this week, I've been talking about media. I've been seeing this kind of shift recently where I believe that this type of documentary, things like Making a Murderer, are going to be the most important pieces of media in terms of what we used to expect from old school journalism. I think these are the things where people are really digging in, they're doing great research work, they're spending a lot of time. In many cases, they can be independently produced. They're not paid for by the 3 or 4 major organizations that run all the other media. So small documentaries like this, I'm finding extremely, extremely valuable. And quite honestly, how many of us could get this kind of contact, be able to interview someone and ask him some pretty straightforward and hard questions about what he did in the past? It also raises some interesting questions about the judicial system, just how they handled some of those cases. I don't think it's going to blow it too much to tell you guys that if they had tried him differently for those first 2 cases involving the children, there's a very good chance that he wouldn't have been available to commit some of his later crimes. They also touch a little bit on psychiatry in the courtroom. The defense of saying that a person is not mentally sound and how that plays out for him. And it is pretty interesting because the prosecutor seems to have this assumption that anyone that would commit a crime like this is obviously mentally affected in some way, but that doesn't mean that everyone can hide behind that defense, which kind of raises some interesting questions for me. They don't dive a whole lot into it, but it's just looking at the course of Arthur's story. There's many of these points that we've talked about in previous videos that kind of pop up and will certainly raise some questions with you if you're really paying attention while you're watching this, which it's hard not to because it just pulls you right in. I was also pretty surprised at his mannerisms. It's pretty interesting to see that while he's speaking about relatively normal things, he's kind of, his eyes blink at a pretty regular rate, but as soon as he's asked questions about his crimes, his blinking gets very hard and very rapid. Like his eyes are just yammering. It's really, really interesting. And then there's this whole overarching thing where you're sitting there wondering, is he being honest with us? This stuff that he's talking about is pretty crazy, and some of it you almost get the feeling that he's trying to explain away or kind of create this backstory for why he did some of the things that he did. Is he being honest throughout this? And by the time you get to the end of the film, I don't know if you'll be able to answer that. Now, if you are a bit more of a casual viewer, if you're someone that doesn't really dig into this stuff, but you just enjoy watching true crime, I don't know if this is really right up your alley. I think for you, I would rate it a bit less. For you guys, I would probably say it's like a 6 out of 10. It's really a piece that I think if you're really, really interested in trying to understand this mindset, you're going to get something out of this. And for you guys, I think I would rate it probably a 7, maybe even a 7.5 out of 10. It's just not often that I see information presented like this. Pretty well done. Really liked the interviewer. He didn't hold back on the questions. You've got some good other interviews going on around it to support or debunk some of what Arthur is saying. And then this really interesting touch near the end about his family that's coming to see him and how he feels about them. I won't blow it for you, but that really left me with some very interesting questions, just in terms of access and, should he be able to see family like that when he's taken other family members away forever? Very, very interesting stuff. So I will put a link in the description box below to the YouTube video. I always do that with a grain of salt because in many cases those videos are not official, they're not authorized, and they will sometimes get removed. So if that link doesn't work for some reason, do look up Interview for a Serial Killer on Netflix. It's available at least here in the US, I'm not sure internationally. And there is another film called Interview with a Serial Killer that I think came out in 2015, but it has to do about Ted Bundy. So just know you might bump into another film that is actually not the same one that I'm talking about. That is, I think, a full-blown film. It's probably got a runtime of 90 minutes or something. This one is, like I said, it's kind of like a news segment, but it's 45 minutes long. Almost something that you would see on a 1-hour special on television or something like that. But all right, thank you so much for spending a little time with me here in the screening room. I'm glad to be back with Itchy Mysteries, and I will catch you on the next show on the Lord and Arch channel. I hope you have a great day. Take care.